There should be no secret codes in the CMS, because that's what I'm used to. Is like, oh yeah, we just double @. That means like it's something magical happens when you mention something. With Sanity, you can make sure that you can invent all of those things, and there is a proper schema for it, and it becomes a proper user interface for it.
Hello, welcome to DevTools-fm. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey everyone, we're really excited to have Simen Svale on with us today. So Simen is the co-founder and CTO of Sanity. Excited to have you talk about it. But before we dig into that, would you like to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. This is amazing. So I have been in. So actually, with my co-founders, we've been working together since the late 90s. So I'm dating myself a little bit here. Forever, and we always used to have these kind of boutique agency business where we were usually around like 10 people, and we would do things that were kind of connecting design, art, and technology. Some of this would be like marketing things, and some of them would be really, really weird stuff. So we've been kind of, I don't know if I'm a developer. In Norway, I have a lifetime achievement award with my co-founder for this as a designer. I'm not a designer, but we do all kinds of things. I think the only where I'm pretty confident with my technical skills, but I do a lot of different things. I used to back in the day, we weren't really working so much with content. We were working mostly with it was a time where user-generated content was a big thing. We made a very early social media kind of site for Norway, for the cultural sector in Norway, which we kind of introduced Norway to the let's say post-tech world social media. Before Facebook and Twitter kind of took that role. So we were big into user-generated content and kind of different ways of for companies and media to kind of engage users in interesting ways. So when we were approached by a company called OMA, which is an architecture agency that is run by a very famous architect called Rem Koolhaas, which me and my co-founder Evan, we are big fans of him. We had all his books, and we've kind of reading them since our 20s, and we're like, isn't he dead? Or he knows about us. He's so huge to us. So just the fact that we were requested to do something for them was just so immensely huge. And he's supposedly this terrible person. That's what people told us. He's this Steve Jobs kind of character. He's kind of draconian leader. So you're like, oh, he might be terrible to us. That would be amazing. So we kind of took that we had to kind of pitch for that job, and we did that, and he was pretty terrible to us. It was super interesting. We were super excited, but that brought us back into something where content was important, because now they needed a web presence for this company. They've been making seminal architectural projects since the 80s. So in our minds, we were creating this super important library, this kind of archive of all of their work. So you have to go find all of your books and all your stuff in the highest possible quality, and you have to go find all of that, because we're going to make this kind of pristine archive with a database of everything, and that's going to power your website. And they were like, oh, that's amazing, we're going to do that. And then we started looking for a system, and then that's when we became angry, because we felt that at that point, we wanted to create something that was usable by non-technical, by the PR department, by the business development department, by the people in the company who knew about the architecture, didn't necessarily care about the tech. But we also wanted to be structured and proper, and to be able to power, we were going to make books and websites from the same content. So we needed it to be very principled. And then that's when we realized, even this new kind of breed of so-called headless systems were still very much web systems, and in my opinion, pretty tactical. They're still WordPress with an API on them, kind of mentally. So we were I want something that is born as a database, that is kind of thought of as a proper database system, but then still presents as a content system. It has all of the APIs and the facilities that a database has, and it has a data model that is as rich and maybe even richer because of JSON. We used to do tables, now we can do hierarchies in JSON. Is better. So we wanted that. And then it turned out we had to build that. We created it initially as an internal tool, And then we used it for Diller and Scofidio, a different architecture agency. We used it for MIT, and I think MIT was the inciting incident. They said like, "What is this system? It's better than anything we can buy." And that's when it kind of clicked. Like, we should probably not be just using this tool. We should be the company that makes this tool. And that's when we turned that into a startup. And that's why I'm here.
That's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think this, like, we've had a few other guests who've had this like track of you build something internally and then that turns into a product. How do you think that helped shape like what it ultimately became? And maybe it like helps to step back and kind of talk about like how users interact with Sanity or how they were interacting with Sanity at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about like what it is, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Like, what is it? It's a to the content team. It's a CMS. It's a admin dashboard. It's where you create your content, where you configure your stuff, where you do the day-to-day operational things. And of course, it's very often is websites, but it can be all kinds of things. It's used for everything from dummy training programs for like first aid systems. And I realized today it's used for Norwegian tax law, managing Norwegian tax law. I didn't know that. So it's used for a lot of different things. But the point is, like, the way most people meet it is as an admin tool to run some kind of content operation. And to a developer, it's a framework. It is a framework for building a CMS. Of course, it's super easy. You can just the easiest thing you can do is just define a number of content models, and you just run it, and it's a CMS. But then it has all kinds of if you're a front-end developers with React kind of capabilities, you can do everything with it, like everything. Then you can automate things. You can create custom workflows. You can build all kinds of stuff. And that was kind of our, like, when we were creating this, my kind of anger was partly like, one thing is I want this database system. Also, I care about my users, and in one sense, my users is the content team. Like, my actual customer is OMA. It isn't their customers. That's their customers. I want to invest in them. Like, I want to talk to the business development team, realize what they are spending their time on, and have the ability to create something that really helps them. That's why I wanted it to be super customizable, the way only code can be. But then still, the kind of principle is that anything that's generic, like queuing things, real-time collaboration, comments, tasks, like all those things, we just take that away. You don't have to build any of that. But anything that you need to, like we watched today, this demo of this tax law system, lots of bespoke workflows, like a new law is changed, is triggering this workflow for interpreting that law for some kind of team that knows about, like, I guess they are lawyers, probably. That kind of stuff. So it's kind of both a system for line of business applications, in a sense, like for these kind of internal tools, but it also is a system that now scales to, I mean, it's used by Skims, like Kim Kardashian's clothes brand. This system, like Sanity, is used directly during kind of Black Friday at Skims. That's like a denial of, like, an ongoing 1 week denial of service attack. Our APIs handle that with no kind of middleware. So, like, Sanity is the system that you can use to build, and it's very cheap on the free plan. You can use it to build your boyfriend's dog walking app for no cost. But it scales to like planet-wide. Kind of Burger King is using it to run all of the kind of menus worldwide. Used by Skims to run the content operations for the. It's used by Unilever and AT&T for their kind of corporate sites. So it's like, and that was one of the things we wanted. We wanted this thing as a developer. I hate, like, having to learn all of these different systems. The point of Sanity was supposed to be able to kind of scale to all these different use cases. That was a lot of different stories in one. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So I find it interesting that you think about Sanity as a database. I think that kind of, like, a lot of, like, the realizations come out of that. And one of the things you call Sanity in your blog posts and your docs is a content operating system.
Yep.
So, like, what would you say are the parts that go into a good content operating system and what you've done at Sanity?
Thank you. Exactly. No, that we struggled for the longest time, to be honest, to figure out, like, what to, because we didn't feel that headless was like I said, like, it didn't really cover what we were going for. It was such an obvious thing. Like, everything is headless, of course. Like, if you add an API and now you're headless, like, that's not really the thing. the thing for us was, and content operating systems kind of means two things to us. From the developer in me, content operating system means it's like a platform to build the kind of the foundation to build all of these, because the CMS part of this is like just one thing. Like with AI, automation, and integrations, like I'm building this whole kind of system of integrations, of automations, of triggers. Like a new story comes in, it needs to be like, for example, Love Holidays is a travel agency. They are resellers of hotels from like different vendors. They get like supplier information from that, and then they automate the editorial process of kind of taking all of these different hotels, bringing them together, use AI to help with that, accelerate that, to translate them into different languages. All of that is kind of part of, in our opinion, that's part of your CMS in a sense. Like that's part of your content operations, and we kind of want to move away from this kind of perspective of content management to more of a process-oriented view. Like I'm designing something that goes in time, that goes on forever. You need to think about it as a process, as a content operations thing. So that's what this a good content operating system is. It has a good database that's optimized for content, and this can mean some very simple dumb things that kind of was super rare. Maybe other systems have it now, but when we started out, like there was no way to embed content, like structured data inside text, and have that be curable and processable as a database record. Like to us, that was like, that's the obvious thing. That's what content is. It should be just paragraph is just an array of a certain kind of object, and then you can have other kinds of data in there, and then that should be processable as just as well as any other kind of data. So that's like having a backend like that, and then supporting all of your needs in terms of automations and integration with other systems. And then one thing we're introducing very soon is compute. It should have, like we have, of course, webhooks, but like we're bringing that into the platform. So like you will be able to kind of just define your backend functions, your AI automations, and that will just be part of your content project. So when you deploy both your schema and also all of these automations and integrations. And then of course on top of that, you need that framework to build to have full control of the operational kind of user interface. Like what are people doing day to day? That has to be, of course, super easy to build out, but it also has to be customizable. So the kind of data layer, the distribution system, the automation and integration system, and then of course the user interface from something that's super easy to build out, but then all the way to full freedom when you need to. And then of course I'll add to that right now, as we are on this DevTools podcast, I think the interesting thing right now is that it was nice for a time to have this drag and drop that felt friendly for a while, to have like visual tools, and we resisted that. Sanity is very code oriented, like you have to define everything in code. And when I got Cursor and I got Warp, and I'm like, now I'm so happy that I can now, because now my kind of AI workflows can now do everything for me. They can build out whole content pipelines and help me do that, because it's all in code. It's all understandable by AI. It's all kind of able to be built up by AI. That's not, I guess, an important part of content operating systems right now, but it is tomorrow.
Yeah, that's all super fascinating. I had the pleasure of working on a team that was building out a content pipeline for a media company like Food Network and HGTV, and they were using Adobe Experience Manager, which was, it's a tool. And the thing is, like the editorial team had a very bespoke like workflow, and the engineering team did a lot of work sort of bending AEM to their will to try to cater to this workflow, because like you were saying, it's like those are your customer, you like want them to be really happy, really productive, and that's like the mark of a good content management system. So I guess my question for you is, like, the challenge was building like a content management service is that you have to kind of be everything for everyone, and how do you do that successfully without it making it either so generic that it's not useful, or like so narrow that, again, it's only useful for some people?
Yeah, no, I guess we are, like, by being programmable, we are cheating a little bit, because like it's very easy to add plugins and to customize things, and so like we are of course, Sanity at its heart is very simple. Like it is deceptively simple. Like I think some people think it's just like some simple forms and some like very generic stuff like that. The devil is in the details as you start like using that and realizing it's real time collaborative, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. And I think that to us that was kind of part of the like the as like in my role as like initially founder and like the CTO kind of thinking is to always be thinking about at a certain level these reusable general building blocks, like the way the database works, the way the APIs are shaped, the way we do the things, to make sure when we think about a new API or think about a new abstraction, to think about how they will be used for many different use cases, and try and limit the kind of number of things you have to learn. I guess some people will say at this point, like there maybe are too many things, but there are a lot of things, features in Sanity at this point. But yeah, I think that, but I do agree, and also there is a tension there, because with Sanity, of course, that's a selling point. That's like what most of our customers tell us is like the customizability is the kind of, that is where the conversation starts, and then they are happy about other things too. But like that's, and when we ask like, what's the alternative for you to like what other products would kind of you compare it to, it would be like to build something ourselves. So that's kind of what drives people to use Sanity. Is like sometimes I say it's a database with a weird go to market, or it is like a framework to build content operations applications. That's, but I do also think it's kind of a footgun sometimes, because I realize sometimes I talk to especially very mature companies that are about to replicate a terrible workflow because that's what they're used to, and like, because that's not always the right thing to do, because like this is an opportunity to evolve, and that's what we sometimes are struggling with, like with very mature customers who are then about to go down, and like I know for a fact that this is going to be terrible for you. I can see it already. I can tell you right now. But I realize that you're going to do this whole thing, and then we're going to be a little bit sad. Like I hope that you remember I told you so, and I'm be here to help you when you come back. But I think that is the challenge, and because I think it is also a good thing to sometimes be very opinionated, and I think that's where sometimes we have like in terms of that we are very opinionated as people, but we have been very much our language is always, oh yeah, you could do anything. Like, how do we do this? And I can do it like in 7 different ways. So what we realize is that our users actually want more guidance, want more opinions, want more clear guidance, and of course they can do whatever they want. But we are trying to be more clear and prescriptive about like what would be the Sanity way of doing things. But like you'll still probably find a fair amount of places where I say, oh yeah, you can do whatever you like, and yeah, for some people that's amazing, and for other people that's just terrifying. Yeah.
Cool. We'd like to stop and thank our sponsor for this week, but we don't have one. So if you'd like to sponsor DevTools-fm, head over to devtools-fm/sponsor to apply. And if you want to find another way to support the podcast, head over to shop.devtools.fm, where you can buy some merch and rep the podcast. With that, though, let's get back to the episode. So let's dive in a little bit to some of the tech you guys have built.
Yeah.
Starting off, one thing that is a problem with CMSs is vendor lock-in, and you mentioned it a little bit, but you've added some like primitives that help make your content a little bit more portable. So can you go into like what portable text is and how it plays into the Sanity workflow?
Yeah. No, you know, like we in my mind when we started designing the backend, which I really was like a great time in my life when we kind of designed it initially, and I thought like I want a database that just feels like a bunch of JSON documents. I want to feel like I can have a JSON kind of ND JSON file on my in my folder and just stream it to Sanity, and now it just for some magical reason becomes a real-time database. And that's pretty much what we have. So the kind of the content backend at Sanity is a JSON database. So that's very portable. Like that works everywhere. And then so that's just general. Most shapes you can do with JSON, you can describe in a Sanity schema, and it becomes editable to your editors. I think any, but I won't know. Any is a big word. But like most reasonable data structures, you can define them in Sanity, and they will be maintainable with nested documents and arrays of objects and whatnot. And then there is one thing that, like you said, like there are certain formats that you just have to have. And one thing that was important to us was that the text is data. So text has to be able to embed content, and that is at least two ways. Like you have to have the ability to embed, of course, the data. Like if I have defined a content type, let's say it's a product, I want to be able to reuse that content type as part of a text. I would be able to say like, this is a sidebar that has a product, and all of that modeling should be the same schema that I use everywhere else. I should be able to reuse those types. So then that's the first thing. There's a way. That's simple. Like there's a text is an array of objects, and some of them are of type span, and others might be of type product. So that's block level things, and then so that's pretty obvious. And then we also wanted to. So I really love like forward leaning, interesting web designs, and very often what limits those aren't the ability to program them, but the ability to manage them. So I think I want very expressive content models. So one of the things I wanted was to be able to have marks be data. So like one thing is of course links, but you want to be able to associate any kind of data structure that you design with a span. Let's say you want some kind of interesting visual thing where Lady Gaga's albums parallax scroll behind your text and always line up with the mention of the record. Now you need some data to kind of power that. So we have a standard for marking up text with marks, with data, and having blocks, and that is a standard that had kind of had to be invented in our experience. So then we made it open source. So that's an open standard that's documented and clear. I don't think it's very widely adopted, but it's at least it's well understood. And then we have lots of tooling around it, and we recently open sourced. I think that's clearly to me the best kind of editor, like rich editor kit on the planet right now is the portable text editor. That is then kind of a component that you use in your own applications that will then follow a portable text schema and allow you to edit those documents. The plug for good right there.
Yeah, I use Sanity for a side project I'm doing, and the portable text is kind of what hit me with like, oh wow, this really does open me up to like creativity. Because like simple things like say you have some documentation and you want to make a sidebar table of contents for the headings. Like if your stuff is represented in Markdown or some other format, it might be actually a bit of work to get that data, but because everything is so structured, I have the freedom to do whatever I want.
Yeah, exactly, and I feel like exactly that, where you want to, as a content editor, you want to be able to work with blocks, and you want to just think about this as content you're editing. But as developers, we want to be able to then understand what the intention was. Like this is not just like a YouTube video. This is a video that's supposed to autoplay without sound and without interactions, because this is actually an illustration. Like and with portable text, you can encode all of these intentions and make that clear. So that as a developer, there is no question. There is no like secret codes or backticks before the YouTube URL. That was actually one of our first kind of post-it notes during the design phase. Was like there should be possible to do all these kind of creative things, and there should be no secret codes in the CMS, because that's what I'm used to. Is like, oh yeah, we just like you just double at sign. That means like it's something magical happens when you mention something. Yeah, so that's over with Sanity. You can kind of make sure that you can invent all of those things, and there is a proper schema for it, and it becomes a proper user interface for it.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize y'all had a standard for it. I would love to check that out.
Yeah,
there's a lot of. I feel like the local first scene, especially, has been chewing through a lot of ways to represent text content in a way that can be sort of shared over CRDTs. So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to look at and see what the opportunities are.
I mean, we Sanity is real-time collaborative. People are like, we have loads of people working in the same document. So portable text is working super well with these real-time patch-based workflows that we're not specifically using CRDTs, but something very similar to that.
That's awesome. One of the things I wanted to ask about, sort of looking through the docs. So I noticed that you have your own query language called Grok.
Yeah.
And I was curious about, like, could you tell us a little bit more about Grok? And then why did you write Grok versus using open standards? Maybe this predates like GraphQL or something.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We were like, it was very clear to us that GraphQL was a big was going to be. It wasn't very big then, but like it was like coming from like RESTful APIs, of course, like GraphQL is the answer to a lot of the nightmares of that. So like we were excited about GraphQL, but looking into it, I was like, I don't agree that GraphQL is a query language. It's actually it's a great API pattern. It's a fantastic API pattern. If you want to define a controlled API, GraphQL is the way to go. Really is the way to go. If you are defining a query language for a content model where you want to be very open about what you can do. Now, if you look at this generated GraphQL APIs are the worst. They are they are huge, and they unfold every possible combination of every kind of filter that you might want to do, and like they're either that or they are taking everything as parameters, and then they aren't really GraphQL anyway. There's like a query language embedded in some parameters. Like there's no, in my opinion, there's no real good way to do a query language in GraphQL. What it is fantastic for is a stable API. Then what you need with a stable API is then you express it in terms of something else. So typically you express your GraphQL API in terms of SQL, right? That's what you transform it into, some kind of query language. Maybe it's MongoDB or something, but you always have a lower level query language that you have to transform it to. And that's the actual query language of the content kind of store that you're using. So our thinking was, I don't think there exists any other query language that is for JSON. The JQ exists now, so there is one. But like, and Grok is surprisingly similar. Like that's a parallel evolution. And the thinking was, I love SQL. It's very old-fashioned, but it's fantastic. The technologies powering SQL is amazing, but it's for tables. It doesn't, like if you use BigQuery, that's kind of how SQL looks when you have kind of JSON shaped data, and it's kind of terrible. So the thinking was, with Grok, we want to have a query language with the abstraction level of SQL. It kind of is it isn't actually similar to, it isn't fulfilling the same role as GraphQL, is fulfilling the same role as SQL. And then actually what's coming out, I hope it would come out earlier, but it's coming out soon now, is a way to define a GraphQL API in a manifest and map it to Grok, so that in reality your end users are using GraphQL. Because I love GraphQL, I just think it's great for when you design the API for one specific use case. That's when GraphQL shines, and that's why I still I support it. Like we do have GraphQL support. We have that kind of, in my opinion, terrible support that every other CMS has, where you just kind of derive the GraphQL schema API from the schema. But what you're coming out with is the one that we actually recommend using, where you design intentionally what you want people to be able to query about, and then that's what you expose, and then you map that to Grok. And we would have to have some kind of query language. I guess the ones we could have borrowed would be MongoDB or Elasticsearch or something. But we wanted joins, and we wanted to be a little bit sweet to write, and we wanted to be a little bit fun. And I think Grok is maybe it looks a little bit weird in the beginning because it's very typographic, but if you just spend like a second or two, it is very simple and very straightforward and very kind of general. Like it has a few building blocks, and if you get those, it's pretty simple. But then it becomes very powerful. It has, for example, for our webhooks, you can use Grok to define rules about how a document changes. So like you can describe, like, if this field changes in that way, then I want to trigger a webhook, stuff like that. So it's been a very useful thing. But yeah, we tried for the longest time to not invent a query language, and then it turned out we had to. And that's also an open standard. We have a open source implementation in JavaScript. There is a formal specification, and there is a test suite that's open source. So if people want to implement that, it is very easy. I actually implemented a new Grok parser from scratch in the weekend because I wanted to see how fast Cursor could help me do that by just giving it the specification. And I made one in C++ and I made one in Python, and they both passed the test. So it's getting pretty easy to start kind of implementing Grok in your products.
That's pretty awesome.
Since we're on it, and you're talking about AI now, it seems like in a lot of Sanity's communications lately, there's been a little bit of a focus on AI, and I think you guys are taking a unique approach to integrating like an AI helper into a content creation workflow. So can you walk us through what that looks like?
Oh, Now you have to be careful because now I'm going to be talking for hours. But I'll try to be. No, yeah, like I used to be a writer earlier, like in my life, and one of the things I hate with AI, I also hate that partly as a developer. AI has this tendency of like I asked Cursor like how would you implement this new data type I'm thinking of in our backend, and he goes like, oh yeah, we do it like this, and then it starts kind of reaming out 7 new files on a test suite for it. I'm like, yes, like I wanted to do that with you, like now and now I'm just reviewing this pull requests, and that's terrible. And the same thing is with writing. Like if you write in the kind of chat mode, you give a brief, it will give you that whole text. Now I have to read it, and then I have to tell you how to change it. And now I'm copy editor, and I wanted to be a writer. So we created a product called Sanity Create, and it's going to be now it's a separate product. It will be kind of as Sanity evolves, it will become part of the kind of standard package. It will be closer to the studio. It's a way to write. So first and foremost, AI needs context to help you. So the first thing is this is a normal. It looks like Notion or something like a general writing tool like that, but it has a sidebar where you can add your notes. And the thinking there is like, of course, for humans collaborating, it is very nice to have a separate space for the notes. Like typically when I work with in Google Docs or Notion in collaborative writing projects, all of the notes are in the document. It's a very messy document. It's full of instructions and notes. And like in Sanity Create, there is a separate kind of section for all of the meta communication, all of those notes. But the point of that is that the AI also can read that, so that when I am writing, I can say, okay, maybe continue from here. I feel like from here, like I'm writing a documentation article, I kind of written my kind of gambit, my interesting opening. I think you can take it from here. You go like a command period, and it starts writing, but it doesn't give you like a boatload of information. It writes one sentence for you, and if you like it, you tab, and it keeps going, and you tab, and it keeps going, and you tab, and I don't like this so much. You just start writing and you take the wheel and you go like, no, I think it should be sound more like this. And then you can go back and you can take turns. And then it becomes more like an actual collaborative thing where you actually are empowered. And by the time your text is done, there's no revisions because you wrote it together. Like you've read the whole thing and you took your choices the whole way. And when you took a different direction, I think very often AI is pretty like make very boring decisions, but are really good at doing the obvious stuff. So very often you get to think, I don't want to get to this point now. I feel like we should like do a little kind of like a switcheroo and like start talking about something else. You do write that, and then the AI kind of, and with the new Sonnet models from Anthropic, it's pretty good at writing too, actually. So like when it takes over, it's pretty good at that. So that's part of it. Then the kind of crux is that we realize that a lot of our customers have it's a separate kind of job to implement content. Like in many big companies, it's like someone takes a Google Doc from like some content process, and they copy pastes it into the right fields. And these documents, and I've collected those documents for a while, like where it says like, yeah, this is a case study, blah blah blah, for so and so customer, and like these are the main use cases, and like, yeah, these are. So basically, it's an instruction for filling out a form. And I realized like I'm like that myself. Like it's hard to be creative in a form, so you actually like want to write in this kind of more free form shape. The thing with Sanity Create, it can be connected to your Content Studio, and it knows your schema. So actually, it can then by itself follow those instructions. So we can actually, like in real time, map your document to a structured content document. And the really cool thing is like if you use Sanity with real Sanity has a really good real-time preview mode with like visual editing and everything. And if you set this up, you can actually edit in your text, and that gets immediately reflected into your document and then into your preview. So you have live preview, and this goes way beyond like just like an article, like a blog article. For that's simple, but you can even describe like landing pages with like, oh, I need a CTA here, they should be blue, and like and then it will implement that for you. So that's pretty cool. That's Sanity Create, and it's free to use. It's just like go there and start playing with it. And as time goes on, it will be integrated more and more into the product, but it will still be free to use. I think it's the plan, at least.
That's awesome. There's like a lot of opportunity there to be, as you integrate it into the product, because it's already a part of all these like content editors workflows, and like it spreads out, and like a lot of people get to take advantage of it. That'd be pretty powerful.
Yeah, and what we realize is like one thing is like the content team. Like if you have very, let's say you're working on merchandising in an e-commerce company, like you want a studio, you want the forums, and you live there and you live and breathe those things. Very often a company has like a second group of users who are like journalists, for example, in a media organization, or even like external collaborators who are like, let's say you like talked with one company who has they do the Elemento Health. They do like information systems for hospitals, like critical information for nurses. And the people who are creating the content are nurses. They are not content professionals, and might not even care very much about like, oh yeah, we have this new content model for guides, and you should like add step here, and might not care very much about like learning that. With Sanity Create, of course, they can work in a much more intuitive way for a nurse, and then that system can automate the migration into a structured shape. And then, of course, that can be then validated and quality assured by a content professional that then can do lots more stories every day. And the same thing, we talked to a company doing, they had like a sponsored content, like branded content. And of course, those people, then you collaborate with someone who really don't care about your CMS. They just want like one page to do to help like review the story and maybe add some flavor to it. That's also like a great use case for Sanity Create. It's kind of like this DMZ at the perimeter of your CMS.
Yeah, I love how it is just like so easy to use, and that AI translation layer seems crazy. And I'm also a big fit. Like, there's kind of two dichotomies in AI tools. There's like the tab workflow where it's like a helper that's coming along with you and working with you as you go, and like the
Yeah.
one shot do it all for you. And I'm really
Yeah.
not a fan of that second workflow. Because as you
No.
said, you become a reviewer. I don't want to be a reviewer of code. I want to be an author of code. And the tab workflow just works so much better for that.
No, I think that, and then the other part is this. I wonder why, like, I feel that is like we did it with the sidebar notes. I think there should be more ways to help add context to a conversation. Like something like everyone has these kind of, you can add things or you can mention things, but like very often I need to add a new conversation, like I'm creating a new conversation because this one has gone mad. I mean, that very often happens. At some point, the AI just goes mad. It's too much context, and I have to start again. I would love to be able to have some kind of pattern where this is like my mainline context. Like this is what I'm working on. I'm creating a database system that is so and so. Like this is like this is like the every day you wake up, at least know this. And I feel like there's that's a pattern that I feel we haven't. Like different tools have different ways of solving that, but like I'm looking for a way to have that context just come along with me. Like this is a job I decided to do today. So every time I talk to an agent or something, it should know that. That's kind of my mode today. Yeah, like a situational
awesome.
background prompt.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this new generation of tools. Especially, it seems like you're doing it very thoughtfully, and that's I think what we need, because there's a lot of there's a lot of folks just rushing ahead.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think we have the privilege in a way. Like I feel like as developers, we see the future. Our tools are from the future. They are like so far ahead of everything else. But I mean, like using like Warp with Cursor or Windsurf. That's how content authoring should feel like in a couple of months. That's what everything should feel like. But we have, of course, like this little benefit of most of our like the industry we are like targeting and developers in our space are not maybe the most eager to deploy all of this immediately, and that's kind of fine. So we can take our like a little bit more time getting everything right. But I'm really excited about. There was a time in the beginning here I was a little bit worried that like is structured content not going to be very important anymore because these AI tools can just kind of take any kind of pile of garbage and figure out the structure of it. And then as time goes by, I realized like it's a very important world here where we quality assure our content. So what AI helps us do is like bring in content that is unstructured into a structured universe, and there we can quality assure. We can make sure like this is a fact, this is a kind of brief, this is more kind of like a description of a thing, whereas this is the price. You can't like invent a new price, but you can invent a new description slightly for a new audience member. And that turns out that the structured content stuff is just more and more important. And with AI we can just work with it more efficiently and in more context and automate things better.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about plugins. So for a lot of creative systems, having a plugin API is like incredibly important, and y'all definitely have one. So like, I was just curious, like what the shape of plugins are, what it allows you, or as a developer using Sanity to do,
Yeah.
and any like difficulties or I don't know the story of like getting there to building that API. It seems like building a plugin API is like kind of a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is kind of a hard thing to do. Yeah, no, the way we tried to design Sanity was, you could almost call it like a microkernel application. We tried to say like everything is a plugin. Like that was the kind of the design kind of principle. We tried to create an application framework that like when you render it, just Sanity is just a white canvas. There's nothing there except the infrastructure, and even like the main toolbar that everyone is using is kind of provided with the same API as the plugin API, because it's just all plugins all the way down. So that was the thinking. Like if we get that API right, then like there's no, like the goal was like there's no separate plugin API, right? Like there's just the API of Sanity. So the way that works is that there's a number of different resources, like a tool, a structure, which is like a navigational structure. There's a schema. There are like content types. There are different resources, and basically and the whole Sanity is defined like that. And then the plugin is just like providing a number of those resources. You just like let's say you have a custom input. Let's say like you design a map input. So this map input has a data type that it needs, and it has a React component, and and then basically the plugin of that is just defining that content type, providing that as to the schema system, and then attaching that to that editing component that you made in React. And then whenever anyone kind of now says type :geopointer or whatever you call that type, that will just call upon your entire kind of the stack you invented. And let's say you want to have a central management tool to see all of the geopoints. I don't know, like I'm just inventing this as we talk. Now you need like a canvas kind of full view. This is called a tool. So you just provide a tool. A tool is just a React component that you then provide, and you call it a tool, give it a name, and it will just appear. And when anyone clicks that, they will load your component. And that's just another resource that you provide in your plugin. And if you want those to appear together, you bundle them as one plugin, and it's just a list of those resources. So it's super simple, super dumb in a way, but that's one thing we hit kind of in all humility. I feel we hit the head pretty like dead on and immediately by not having like we're not thinking about this as a plugin API at all, just the API.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like if you've leaned into a plugin API, by the time you're like, okay, user plugins, it's like, oh, well, we've defined every part that this thing could want to integrate into our system already.
Yes, exactly. It's like there's no concept of having a hook for plugins. That's not a thing. Like if let's say we need a way to place a button in the main toolbar. Like if we need to do that, there will be an API for that. Because I'm exaggerating a little bit. I'm not sure that's possible, frankly, because that's a single resource we're providing. So like that might not have might not be possible. But the point is like we are not adding hooks. We just decide how to carve up the resource system, and that's what we provide, and that's what anyone can provide. And we do the same thing with our backend, frankly. Like we don't have private APIs. We probably have some, but like in general, all of the like every API that's involved in like presence and real-time collaboration, how mutations are on the wire, you might not care about that, but this is all documented. Like you can do that yourself, and we are working on tooling and SDKs that makes it even easier. But these are all like if you need to build some of this in Java or interact with that from somewhere else, is all like all of the APIs are first-class citizen documented things, because that's how we are thinking. Like we are thinking that if we need it, you need it, and we're building a platform, and everything is kind of built by parts that are loosely coupled. And most people will not care. Like they will want the big picture tools, and that's kind of fine. But the point for us is like back in our agency days, like we want to have most things should be super easy. Reasonable things should be easy. and then everything should be possible. Like there should be no, because like every customer has this one request, and it's a kind of super annoying to be able to say like, no, that's actually not possible because this is a hosted system, or yeah. And our approach, our dream was to be able to have a system that is both like we take care of everything. Like I don't, at least back in the day when I was like, I didn't love to have to kind of manage databases and run kind of servers, and like I'm even back in the day we had actual physical servers that like we had to drive to when the SCSI controller was down. Like I hated all of that, so I wanted this product to have that go away, while you still have all the control you would have in something like WordPress, where you have all the code, like you can do all the stuff that matters, you can do all of that, but all of the like getting the content out to edge nodes and that just disappears, and that was kind of the design goal. People talk about local first, I'll be like, yeah, that's a bait and switch thing. You don't want that.
Yeah, the main takeaway I have from Sanity is just the flexibility. It sounds like it's at so many different levels from back end to front end. Like even with plugins, it's so nice that like you guys handle the content management part and then just hand it off to me in the end to do the rendering. So like I wanted to add code examples to my documentation. That was super easy. I just popped in a plugin. I could edit it there. And then when it's on my side, I had full control on how text highlighting worked and how it was displayed within my content. So that flexibility is so cool.
Yeah, that's super nice. And now that's where we started, right? Like that's where we came from. The first, like when I think, I don't know, the stories in the companies like with various here, but like to me, that was like where we came from. This kind of freedom of this, like this design. It was about design to me. Like I want to be able to, like all the time, I have these ideas that I want to do, and then I can't hand the control to a customer or to the right people, so I can't do them. Like I have to do something that is more automatic or something like that. And I had a great conversation. It's tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow, it's not now. You have to cut that out because it's not tomorrow now. It's tomorrow at the time of recording. But there will be on our YouTube channel. You can find a webinar with the people who created the website for Lady Gaga. And that was super fun to me because that's a beautiful, like animated, colorful, playful website. And I feel like too few of those currently. Like this is like super. It's like a small things, like they have. I don't know how they did it. They have like these kind of bump maps, I think, for all of the products. So like when you change the color scheme to match a certain record, all of the products are lit with that kind of color scheme. I don't know how they did it, but it's kind of unreasonable attention to detail. But that is kind of, yeah, that's what I was initially excited about, that kind of opportunity to do these amazing things and create amazing experiences. And then like I mentioned, like one of our first customers was Burger King, and they were about this operational thing. They were about like powering their, like having a content team be able to define a menu and then have that kind of trickle out to like delivery apps and ordering kiosks, and even like behind the counter kind of screens for burger kind of cooks. And we were like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. We didn't think of that. At least I didn't think of that. And now, of course, that's like, I guess our business is like half and half, these two kind of content operations or remarkable experiences. That's kind of how I think about it. And hopefully sometimes it's both.
Yeah, that's super awesome, and just like a really impressive business. I mean, that you can cater to all of these is incredible. As we start to wrap up the episode, we always like to ask a future-facing question. And I think for you, like obviously, what do you think is next for Sanity? And like, I don't know, in this new world where we have AI capabilities, sort of as you're talking about with the new features coming out in Sanity, how do you think this is going to change how we create content and edit content?
Yeah, no, I think that what I'm most excited about right now is this kind of a content operating system direction of the company, where it's really all about developers. Like we had periods where we're like, are we too technical? Should we talk more like high level strategic? You realize like we are developers and we're for developers, and like the whole strategy is about making sure we double down on that, and it's all about to me, like what I wanted was to be able to have like we talked about, like I have backend functions, I have AI integrated, I have the ability to define my studio, and of course all is integrated with the front end frameworks that I like. Like that is that is like where we are working really hard at Sanity now to just make sure that is completely rolled out. And to me personally, I'm super excited about backend, like about content compute, about automation, and kind of just being able to run my code inside the kind of database. And then, as you said, like AI is the kind of the stuff that's going on with kind of especially language models, of course, to us is incredibly interesting. And I think like our position on that is that Sanity is it is very much about efficiency. A lot of people who use Sanity are about like building workflows and optimizing how their teams work and kind of creating these sweet kind of workflows that are kind of oriented around how the company thinks. And that doesn't change. The AI tools just makes that richer, deeper. You can go further into like what you can automate. And to me, it's always about, like we talked about, like you talked about like the tab versus wall of text kind of workflows in AI. And we are very much about that tab workflow. And it doesn't always mean that it does small things. I think like the things we are seeing in the lab right now is like being able to do huge comprehensions on all of our content. And like these are like not tab-like workflows. You can like really comprehend all of the stuff that you just couldn't reasonably do a moment ago. And then it is about that tab moment, that moment where like you as a human go in and like, now I have all of the information. This is how I decide to act. This is how this is that sentence that is really important to me. This is how I want to decide to shape that. And I think that is kind of the kind of user experience that we are designing for now. That's kind of zoomed out, using the power lifter mode of like AI to kind of do these huge operations and then be able to zoom in and be extremely human on what you think matters. And I think one thing, like developing in a kind of AI assisted coding environment, what you learn is I thought a lot of the coding I did was coding, and I realized it's just chores. Like a lot of the stuff you do as a developer is just obvious. Like I'm gonna sort this array and put it into buckets in a hash map, and then I'm gonna sort those and create some drop down with that. That's all just chores. That should just be that sentence. And that's what AI does for me. Like where I know I have a sense for when AI can take over, and I have a sense for when I need to really lean in. And I think that is a completely new experience to realizing how many of the decisions we make aren't really the decision. We're just unpacking an obvious thing. And that's what I think is interesting for content operations or for all kinds of work in the future, and the interfaces we use to that is to optimize for getting to those moments where we really do the decisions that really matters and that we really care about, and to have these, to make sure that the other decisions that we automate away. And I think that's a lot of the stuff we're working on now, like the developer experience. And of course, to me at least, I think it's so fantastic to be able to collaborate with AI when building these things. So making Sanity, even like we're working hard to make Sanity just better and better as part of a kind of AI assisted workflow, getting it into all of the tools and getting agent kind of like we're working really hard with the model context protocol, so have support for those things to kind of integrate with agents and stuff like that. So that's a huge thing for us.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic.
Well, that wraps it up for our questions this week, Simen. Thanks for coming on. This was a very fun time going through all the different ways that you enable developers to make good content experiences. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Simen. I feel like building a CMS is the classic like developer trap, and y'all did it.
Yeah.
You won the
classic
game.
mistakes. Classic mistakes. Time management or CMS. Yeah.
You're one of the rare few to not only do it, but to do it well and make it into a very successful business. So congratulations.
Yeah, they're kind words wrapped in an insult. Thank you. Oh, I love it. Thank you.